Hello, everybody. Welcome back to TiE Talks. We are very happy to see 500 people attending and join the call already. We're just about to begin, but just before going there, I'd like to tell you that this education sector TiE Talk is also being streamed live on our TiE Hyderabad Facebook Live as well as the YouTube Live for you. So thank you so much for joining in numbers. TiE Talks is a series of webinars we've been doing since 23rd of March, just a day or two before the lockdown started. And today, this is the 9th in our series. We are very happy that each webinar we're getting in excess of 600 to 800 attendees. This one is very well subscribed, more than 2,500 registrations. We thank you for keeping your faith in us for the topics that we bring and also the interest in the TiE Talk. So quickly, for all the attendees, all through the webinar, you will be muted. And should you have any questions for the attention of the moderator, please type it in the questions window on your panel, and the moderator will ask the panelists as appropriate. And in case if you are having any troubles with audio connections or other related internet troubles, please check your connections or seek the help of organizer by messaging your organizer there. With that behind us, I'd like to introduce TiE Hyderabad very quickly. We have 2 decades of standing in Hyderabad, and TiE, which is called as the Indus Entrepreneurs, is a global body of entrepreneurs who have started this in 1992 in the Silicon Valley. The charter members who are volunteering to support new and young entrepreneurs. These are the people who come, mentor, and guide and educate all the new entrepreneurs. Today we call them startups. We have a huge history and a large membership in Hyderabad as well. So TiE Hyderabad and TiE education is a very important mission for all of us to foster entrepreneurial mindset in students from a very early stage. We have 2 very popular and successful initiatives here. TiE Young Entrepreneurs, we help high school students get introduced to entrepreneurship and inculcate the entrepreneurial mindset in them. We have already completed 10 editions of TiE. We impact hundreds of students every year. And the other program that we conduct for students is the TiE Grad. And TiE Grad is focused for the college students. And this is run by practicing entrepreneurs who mentor teams, and they're dedicated mentors per college. And this program in the last 3 years had grown more than 300%, both in terms of the number of colleges we added. Today we are having about 26 plus colleges signed up in TiE Grad, and we impact around 6,000 plus students. The Vishnu Group, chairman of the group, is in our panel today. They support TiE Grad, and also the Telangana government supports TiE Grad in a very big way. You'll hear about it in a minute. And this program, TiE Grad, is also been the best support for young entrepreneurs program by TiE Hyderabad. We got a global award last year from the TiE Global. That said, we'll jump into the topic. Today is the first session in education space, and we have a very interesting topic and impressive panelists lined up for you. The moderator of this session is going to be Mr. Ananth, who is TiE Life member. He's also the chairman of SkillPro. He's a computer science postgrad and an MBA from Stanford University. He's a very active TiE mentor. He's into e-learning space, the LMS, and he also runs his own venture initiative called Focus Ventures, which mentors and invests in early stage startups. So over to you, Mr. Ananth. Please take it away from here.
Thank you, Fanny. Appreciate. First of all, welcome all the panel members. Thank you for taking time to be here. Welcome all the attendees. I hope that we'll be able to talk about some of the topics that you're interested in listening to and address some of your questions, or at least give thoughts and perspectives from each of the panelists. Our topic for today is transformation of education and role of e-learning. I think that the COVID has given us a completely new world to work with. I think if I look at the kind of impact it has had on education, of course, schools and colleges are closed. There's no visibility to when they will resume. Exam schedules are not announced yet. And in between all of this, if you look at the size of the problem, 50% of India is under 25 years. So in some form of learning and education is going on there. 29% of them are under 14, which means active schooling is happening there. 29% of 1.3 billion people is a lot of people. So 250 million people going to schools. More than 40,000 universities, colleges, and 1,000 universities. More than 40 million going to college for higher studies. And then if you look at the education sector, which is more than $100 billion in India as of last year. And I think all of that is kind of come to a standstill. While there's a lot of efforts to revive it, I hope we can talk a lot more about how the new normal will work and what are the things that each of us as schools, as students, as parents should be thinking about in the years to come forward. I would like to first of all introduce the panel members. Again, thank you for joining us. Our Mr. Mittal, IAS officer. He is from the 1996 batch, and he has served in several roles. From IIT Delhi, served in several roles, right from Visakhapatnam Municipal Corporation to more recently Municipal Administration and Urban Development for the state. He's also been Secretary of Finance. And over the last 2 years, he's working as Commissioner of Collegiate Education and Technical Education. Right. One of the things that he's looking at is a lot of efforts to modernize and reorganize the courses in government colleges. And that has led to about a 43% growth in student admission in the last 2 years, which is really unprecedented. He's also helped revise curriculum to include soft skills and employability skills as an integral part of the college curriculum. Biometric attendance, and then there is the DOST admission platform of Telangana for online admissions in colleges. It's one of the best in the country, and many states are looking to replicate that. Right, so he's single-mindedly focused on improving the quality and outcome of higher education and technical education. Thanks for being here, Mr. Mittal. We'll look forward to your comments on this. Thank you. Our next panelist is Vishnu Raju. Vishnu I've known for a long time, and so I take the liberty to say he's a very good gentleman. Not that the other panelists are not, but I know him very well to say that. Vishnu is into diversified set of fields. He's run right from cement companies to food companies, but his heart and soul, I think, is in the education space. He has the Vishnu Educational Society, handling over 20,000 students across different streams, including engineering, polytechnic, pharmacy, dental, and management programs. He is, he's a chemical engineer by background. Did his chemical engineering from Michigan Technology University, and then, of course, BTech from Trichy. He speaks several languages, English, Telugu, Tamil, which I just found out today, and Hindi. So if you have questions in Tamil, feel free. We have a panelist to address that. And he is a very active reader of books. So, he loves reading, and he also ensures that a lot of his team and his friends that he can tell are active readers. Thank you for being here, Vishnu.
Thank you, Ananth.
Our next panelist is Snehal Pinto. She's part of the founding family of the Ryan Group of Institutions. I think Ryan is by far the largest school chain in the country, with over 135 schools and over 2 lakh students. This organization has a really good story to say about how to scale good quality education. Right? She has been an educationalist herself, with several years, over 20 years of experience, both in teaching and leadership. She has completed a doctorate in education from Southeastern University, Florida. She's been a very active part of several associations, helping with CBSE, ICSE, IB, and IGCSE in different roles to kind of leverage strengths across all of these for improved school performance. Right? Her focus has been to maximize schools' efficiency, consistently bringing in strong process orientation that leverage methodologies and help schools perform better. Thank you, Snehal, for being here. So with that, I think that again, going to the topic of our day today, transforming education and the role of e-learning. I think e-learning has become a critical part of this. Colleges and schools have a role. Blended learning is important. I will request our panelists to talk about what it means in the short term, what it means in the long term, and what future do they see, and some of the initiatives that they have done while stepping up to this new normal, if I may say so. We'll request Mr. Mittal to please address the group.
Thank you, Ananth, and a very good evening to you and my co-panelists, Vishnu and Dr. Snehal, and all the participants. It's a real pleasure to be here and talking about a very important topic, which is transformation of education and role of e-learning. I mean, post-COVID-19. I mean, this has been really, I would say, an unprecedented period in last century of human history. Global lockdown, and India, one of the strictest lockdowns seen anywhere in the world. And this has really disrupted many sectors, education being one of the important sectors which have been disrupted due to this lockdown. And I think what we are also seeing is a sort of a transformation which is happening. And I can tell you that there are a lot of negatives which have been associated due to this lockdown, which we have seen in the last 2 months and maybe in times to come. But there are also a lot of positive spin-offs which have happened in the education sector. And I can confidently tell you that the quantum of change which we are seeing both in the faculty and the students and in the way our institutions are working and going to work, we are seeing almost many years of change in a very short time. I mean, I can tell you about the government colleges and so the private colleges in Telangana, which I am handling. We are seeing the adoption of technology, which probably would have taken many years to come, maybe 5 to 10 years. We have seen that kind of adoption in very short time. So this has really accelerated that change. And we are also seeing a lot of uncertainty around it due to the social distancing which is being practiced and which we might have to practice over the foreseeable future, because we are not really coming across a vaccine or a treatment for COVID in foreseeable time, in the sense at least it is going to take about a year or two to come. So till that time we have to practice social distancing, and the way our educational institutions are right now, the classroom sizes and the environment which they're in educational institutions, it is going to be very difficult to practice social distancing when the institutions open up. And I think this is a problem which we are all grappling with. Some of the things which we have done in Telangana in the recent times, in the last few weeks, is at least make use of this lockdown to cover up the syllabus which could not be completed due to early closure of our colleges. So most of our faculty members have taken online classes. In fact, we've been monitoring on a day-to-day basis. And the fact says that almost 92% of faculty members have taken online classes, roughly about 2 to 3 lectures a day through various platforms, which is Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, or even many of them have used Zoom and some of the other platforms also. The student attendance also has been kind of growing. To begin with, it was very poor, but as the days passed, we saw the student attendance improving. So much so that our statistics show that almost 28 students were on an average attending a class, which is I would say not to the full extent, but it is almost like 50 to 60% of the enrollment which is there in a particular class, because general class size is about 60. So if you take 50 to 60 students in a particular class, I mean 28 average translates to almost 50 to 60%. So which is pretty good, because even in the colleges you see generally the attendance varies between 60 to 70%. Not every student comes to every lecture. So that has been a good part, but there is also a big digital divide which we are seeing, because especially students from poorer backgrounds and students who are in remote areas and rural areas, they do not have access to a device, whether a mobile phone, a smartphone, or a laptop. And many of them, even if they're owning, they're not having a very stable internet connection to connect online. So they have been kind of missing it. To some extent, we have been trying to bridge it by providing the recorded videos to them also, and also a lot of notes and teaching and learning material to them through email, or through putting it in a particular site which they can access at their leisure. But I would say this has been unprecedented times.
Thank you, Mr. Mittal. That gives us a context for what we're going to talk about the rest of the sessions, rest of the section. I'll request Vishnu, just before you start, Vishnu, I want to say that there is a max of 1,000 attendees, and they're maxed out. So I think if you have friends, colleagues that need to join, I would request that they go into a Facebook Live or a YouTube Live. That information is probably published, and maybe we can put it on the screen as well. But over to you, Vishnu, for your initial address.
Thank you, Ananth, and good evening to all my fellow panelists, Mr. Navin Mittal ji and Dr. Snehal Pinto, and Ananth, of course. And I also like to thank Mr. Funny, Mr. Vamshi, and Mr. Navin for the support. It's indeed a privilege for me to attend this TiE talk. TiE is very close to me because the original founder of TiE was an alumni of Michigan Tech, Mr. Kanwal Rekhi. And so I have that connect also. I'm very honored to be here. I also welcome all the participants. I can see there are more than 1,000. I think we have maxed out the number of participants, and quite a few are already on YouTube and Facebook. So good evening to all the participants who have logged in from all corners of the world. And I hope you and your family members are all well and safe during this pandemic. Thank you, Ananth, for a good introduction. Basically, in a nutshell, I wear 2 hats. I very actively involved in higher education in the states of Telangana as well as Andhra Pradesh. I also run some manufacturing companies. So we have been very severely hit in all the sectors. Coming to higher education, today's topic, all of you may recall that 10 years back when we had these MOOCs coming into the picture like Coursera and Udacity, people thought that there'll be a great disruption in higher education. But that disruption has not taken place. A lot of reasons for that. How disruption has taken place due to technology in healthcare. Somehow higher education was spared. I don't think it has made a big impact. But now, thanks to this pandemic, and as Mr. Mittal said, if you look at the positive side to this, I think there's no other option for us but then to get on to online teaching learning. And there's a great opportunity, but it also comes with its own challenges. To substitute an experience, a student experience, the peer learning, peer interaction, a nice campus feel. Today, people are investing a huge amount on developing their campuses, student spaces, nice canteens, nice gyms, sports facilities. So the whole experience in higher education is something which online may not be able to replace, except for delivering technical content. I think that's the first challenge. The second challenge I see is how do we motivate our faculty? A person like me, if I have to teach a class, and my audience is all the younger students today, one very important thing what we have seen is, and as Mr. Mittal said, many of our colleges have transitioned. Sir, actually in PVRIT Hyderabad and Narsapur, I think student attendance is about 80%. When a student asks a question or answers a question, or when there's an interaction between the faculty and the student, it's like a regular chat. It's a very closed-end chat, something which we were all used to typing in the 1990s when we were students. But today's students are more into social media. They're into Twitter, they're into Facebook, and whereas many of the faculty are not in tune, especially faculty of my age. So how do we actually change the look and feel on this online learning? How do we actually win over the students? I think that's a challenge. And I was just discussing with Ananth, there are some good platforms. There's a company called Course Networking, started by a fantastic Iranian professor in Indiana. And you can actually plug it into your LMS, any learning management system. And it actually, you can, things like hashtags and memes and all that, which are very, something which is very young today. The faculty also can actually interact with the students. So that's something which we're experimenting in. The second thing is, how do we motivate faculty? It's extremely important. And according to me, the key is to motivate faculty to actually make the content very interesting. It's not as simple as a classroom teaching. According to me, it's very, very tough, but it can be done. And there are a lot of resources online which are available. And I think this is the right time for the faculty to start engaging, especially in subjects like the core engineering subjects, medicine, dentistry, where a lot of lab activities there. It's very difficult for us to actually put that content online, even though there are simulation tools. So going forward, I would think that it will be a combination of online learning, plus there will be some kind of an interaction, which is very essential in higher learning. In many subjects, unless you go to a lab or a workshop, it becomes very difficult. I think this will be the future, but of course, it's very difficult for me to predict that. The other caution for higher education, because I'm sure today a lot of people who are the management people also maybe attending this webinar, what's going to happen in the fall session? Already we are seeing news in the US that they're predicting a huge drop in enrollments due to various reasons. Some universities are even talking about postponing the fall session to spring of 2021. And even though Mr. Mittal said that UGC and ASCT have given guidelines, unless there is an end to this pandemic, suppose there is a second spike coming up, I don't know what the situation is going to be in this country. We also need to be prepared for that. So in such a scenario, when students come to the campus with the available infrastructure, how do we maintain the social norms? Do we look at classes on alternate days? Do we have some students sitting at home, some students coming to class? I think these are all things which will evolve over a period of time, and as time goes by, I think definitely solutions will come. And I'm sure UGC and ASCTA and Medical Council of India, Pharmacy Council, Dental Council, they're all working on this. And I think with this background, I think Ananth, I have a lot of points to talk about, but I think I'll just one final point, which may be of interest to a lot of people here. Just this morning on May 5th in the US, there is something called an NACAC, a National Association for College Admission Counseling. It's a membership of all colleges, and you can actually go online and see whether seats are available now for the coming fall session. And last year on May 5th, when this list was made public, typically it's made public on May 5th, and it's a coincidence that we are having a webinar also today. Last year at the same day, there were about 417 members who still had vacancies in their freshman year. Today, as we sit here, the number has crossed 600. Maybe this is an indication of things where the enrollments in higher education also might see a dip, especially when students have to go to different locations from away from their hometowns, staying in hostels, traveling in buses.
We realize, Toffler had said a few years ago, the illiterate of the 21st century won't be one who cannot read and write, but one who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that is what we are defined by now. A lot of us at different points of our careers and professional journeys have had to go through this. learning new skills, unlearning old things and routines. And as a result, what we have seen is the new normal in place, really. How are we grappling? Are we grappling with it? No, we're feeling our way for sure, but I think we'll get there, because this 40 odd days have been almost like a warm-up exercise, if I may say so, for all of us to get ourselves embracing the new normal in education. And one of the things we saw was the role of the teacher undergoing a major change. No longer is she relegated to being the one who gives. She is now an active collaborator with the student community as well as with the parents. And so with the shared roles amongst the three stakeholders, we have seen shared responsibilities as well. In demographies, we serve different demographies across the region, 40 cities. So, uh, different things affect the dynamics of how we transact the curriculum. We have had to keep in mind the factors. One, we are at different points of the academic calendar year, as well as taking in consideration the economic background, socioeconomic backgrounds, where you have shared resources within the homes. So we have had to deal with all of that. One of the things we've seen is, as soon as we foresaw this in the making, that there is this likely to be a scenario that's going to be long term, one of the first things we did was extensive training for the staff, right from the heads to the teams, zonal teams, to the teachers, and what we identified in the meanwhile was our millennial teachers taking to technology just so smoothly. And as a result, they became teacher leaders, if I may say so, specialists, who then became kind of mentors to the others. On There was like a resource team that moderated the new softwares, but they became the go-to people within their schools, within their branches on, listen, I've got this new software, what do you think about this? So you got to try this app, or you got to try this extension. Don't go through the entire downloading of things. And it was a lot of peer learning took place at that level. Similarly, we took suggestions from and our kids are, students are the biggest drivers of this change, really. As much as the accountability was on the teacher, especially for when they had to go live teaching on, oh my goodness, I'm going to be watched by so many people and their homes. Once the guards fell off, the higher accountability was on the kids themselves, because now they can't be how they are in the classroom, isn't it? In the classroom, you get through the little mischief here, you oversee those things, but at home they have to be them perfect selves, because they're under watch. And we saw, while we were wondering about, well, are they going to pay attention or not? Uh, the kids really rose up to the occasion. We had a captive audience, but we also realized our lesson plans had to undergo major change in creating, in being more creative. And so also keeping in mind the health of the kids, screen time had to be limited. But we saw all of the strategies of flip learning and all of those things, use of different softwares like Screencastify, all of those things just came in the play. But what we realized was teachers were being more creative in how they want to transact it. So once they appreciated the autonomy given to them, they kind of just ran with it, and that was helpful to us. So one of the first learnings we had was, the moment you allow a certain space for them to explore possibilities, you allow creativity, you allow innovation, and as a result, they own it up. And that is what happened. They owned up their process of learning, both for the teachers as well as for the students. And as a result, we also saw parents having to play roles. So it was shared roles. Parents became more proactive, wanting to become an educator themselves, but didn't realize that they can facilitate the process. But if you have too many voices to the kids are going to be overwhelmed. And that is something where we realize there needs to be routines in place and structures in place that are defined. Because if you're having a shared resource at home and a parent needs to be working, you need to understand. And that's where the teachers came in and owned this up and said, we're going to record our lessons. We're going to keep a chat room available just to do a Q&A and help them get through their courses. Thankfully, we were at the end of the academic year, and that helped. So that kind of helped, like a warm-up exercise on what's to come. How are we going to cope with the social distancing norm? Are you prepared? And those are the questions that are like flooding us, obviously. But I think one is definitely once we get the guidelines from our respective state departments across the state, obviously UNESCO has given guidelines, and they are the larger, broader framework that we want to keep in mind and go with it. I know the IB School Heads Network, are already doing their thing. The council, as well as the CBSE, and even the respective state boards are already putting forth they're developing their guidelines. I think once that is in place, the framework is in place, we're going to definitely go for a staggered reopening. But blended learning, the hybrid model, is definitely here to stay. And that is your new norm for teaching learning in the K-12 sector. However, they will have certain boundaries, because you want to keep in mind the health of the younger kids, the pre-primary and the lower primary kids, as well as the demographies that may not be able to have the ease of access to technologies. And that's why I think we're looking forward to more platforms that are going to be developed by technology providers like yourself, Ananth, if I may say so, to help one, keeping flexibility in mind, and enabling all of the solutions to be in one, if I may say, one place, not having to integrate, taking from here and taking from there, but having like an integrated ecosystem of sorts to cater to a diverse student community across the nation. So in short, this has taught the critical skills of adaptability as well as flexibility for our students, teachers, parent community as well. And in the near future, I think we will definitely need to review the pedagogical models. We'll definitely need to keep in mind one, because learning is going to be so much more personalized now, given the scope of e-learning options.
Fantastic job of acting so quickly on all the change that you're trying to bring about, and in fact allow the teachers to innovate. I'll just give my thoughts a little bit here. First of all, just to give you context, SkillPro is a e-learning solution provider. What we do is help schools and colleges immediately deliver training and allow students to be on their mobile, on their desktop, be accessing content. What we've seen is that a lot of schools are right now looking at it very quickly and saying, hey, I need to do live teaching. Is that my way? And some schools are saying, WhatsApps and let me say email downloads, so assignments are going up and down, etc. And we see that there is a lot of learning happening, but there is a lot of unstructured, immediate, knee-jerk reaction that is happening. And we believe that this has to start getting structured. And I think that while in the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks, it's about grappling to just give information to the student and for the teacher to enable certain lessons to be learned, some live classes to immediately happen. The whole thinking around how e-learning has to be delivered and how blended learning has to happen, hasn't yet happened in most schools. Right? That's that's where I see it. I think from the beginning, if you just go back to our history, I think we started as a training company and with centers all over the country and classroom training about 8-10 years ago, and slowly we said, no, we need e-learning tools because we are distributed, remote access, and we need to do that, and we need to do that in a simple and easy way. And we started to do that, and for 2-3 years we did that, and we said, no, this is an e-learning solution is a very powerful solution for the students if we get it right, and if we are able to enable them, then enable schools and colleges. So actually we then migrated to being a completely e-learning technology company. So really our background comes from being a classroom driven to complete technology, and we said this technology based thing. We want to help every other school and college kind of get there. So I would say, we call our product Empower O. That's Empower O. The whole idea is we fundamentally believe that colleges and schools and the teacher connect is an essential part of any kind of learning. So yes, there is solutions that say go to online, do a course, and if it's not teacher-led and campus-led, we believe that it serves a very small percentage of learners. Probably some adults learning online, or some skill improvements, upskilling, etc. can be done. But fundamental education, if you look at colleges and schools, the teacher connect is an important and integral part. But what's happening with this, a lot of edtech firms, like the Byju's of the world, or the Coursera, they're grow courses at students, and we see 3% completion, 4% completion rates, which is very, very low. And if a school has that, those students would not continue in the school. So I think schools take it at a very, very different level. So our goal is how do we enable the school and the college to have the delivery mechanism that a Byju's or a Coursera provides, which is anywhere, anytime learning, high quality videos, content, tests, etc. But blend that very carefully with how the teacher wants to teach, and the teaching pedagogy, and the school's ability to manage the student. So I think schools have been slow to adopt this as a technology, but today it has completely fast-tracked it and said, let me get this and let me do that. So I want my student to have let me say, a Byju's kind of experience at home from a delivery standpoint, but I will tell them what content, what tests to do today, what homework to do today, and really manage the student interface. And without that connect, I think education is very hard to happen. So I'm a big believer that while e-learning is coming in, or in any way, it has to bend with college education and school education, and that is the only way that education can be fruitful. At the same time, I also believe that this is not a temporary situation where suddenly we're doing live classes, and then after lockdown, guess what, come back to school and everything goes on normal. I think Snehal said that, and Mr. Mittal said that this blended learning is here to stay. That is the future. In fact, interestingly, Satya Nadella, the Microsoft CEO, was talking about it yesterday, and he said, there are 10 things that are changing right now because of COVID, and he went on to list the 10 things. But 3 or 4 of them he mentioned as things that are in the COVID time. While COVID is there, these are the emergencies. And then the next 10 things, next 3 or 4 things he said is for the new normal, which is this is going to be as long as COVID is around, and anti COVID drug is there, and it's all gone from the society. These are the 3-4 things that should go, and the immediate needs are masks and things like that. But even after that, some of the changes. But he said there's 2 things that this environment has speeded up, but is here to stay, and it should have actually been happening a long time ago. And that is, one is telemedicine, and second is e-learning. Right? These are here to stay. In what form, how, etc. It's a fast forward on them because of COVID, but it is not a temporary solution. So I think that's something that schools should grapple about, and schools and colleges. Since I'm in the e-learning.
Sorry, Ananth, if I may add to that, I think e-learning and blended learning will be credible if it is validated also, because if it is looked upon, I think the mindset and the perception also would need to change. If it is looked upon just as a supplementary a tool, an enabler to to help your formal convention of teaching learning within the physical classrooms, I think it's going to lose its we are here, we are with it now, and I think the only way forward would be great if it could be accredited, validated with a certain criteria in place, because I think the whole nation is now just especially in the schools K to 12, I know they've just taken on, and I think this will be a welcome move if the authorities even consider that.
Absolutely, I think we'll get into some of this even more. But I think one of the things that have been asked to address is what key things should happen in order to integrate learning better with schools and colleges, right? Or integrate e-learning better with schools. I think, of course, you've talked about blended learning. That's very key. It's very important to empower the teachers and engage the students. The two things that Vishnu also addressed is that if the solution that you're thinking about cannot do those things, I think that would be a tool. So it cannot be a burden on the teachers. You know, today trying to do WhatsApps and managing the WhatsApps and sending assignments and emails downloaded from my web. It's and come to the live class and then the notifications. That's a lot of let me say haphazard things happening. It has to be a structured learning environment. I think that's the first thing I would say. Second, as Mr. Mittal also pointed out, this has to be anytime, anywhere learning, and even the poorest of the poor should have access to it, which means absolutely it has to be mobile enabled. It has to be, let me say, computer enabled. It has to be TV enabled at some point. And so anybody should be able to learn wherever. And when I say learn, it's not some random content coming, but your teacher is telling you what content you're learning. They have validated it. They have ensured that what is learning for the day. And that's an important part. And I think that just like we're grappling with teachers adopting quickly enough, and the students definitely will go real fast. I mean, WhatsApp and all of these things went so fast. I would believe that students will adapt to digital learning very, very quickly. I think it's only the teachers that have to get it faster. And thing I've seen my daughters, something new was launched by their school, and by the end of day one, they had no questions about how their classes are organized, when's the next session, how a live session is, how do they go do content, how homeworks are done, etc., etc. I think the key is in the content, and the school has to own that responsibility. Whether they get some external content or not, the school has to have that, and it has to follow the teaching pedagogy of the thing. I think also it's important to understand that while live learning, certain material is video is streamed, we don't get a full sense of how the student is taking it. And is he learning? Is he thinking? So things like, measurement of progress, assessments, being able to do that is all critical components of any kind of blended learning and solution. So I would say some of those things, I guess, are critical, and we are looking to, we believe we address some of these, and we are looking to address more and more needs as we identify them. That's where I would stop, and I would probably start to request the moderators, to the panelists, to kind of address a few other topics that that would be key. Student-centric learning has to continue, and engagement is significant. Now, it'll be nice to hear from any of you some of the initiatives you've taken where you've seen high engagement. I think Vishnu, you mentioned one, Mr. Mittal mentioned one, where where you're able to get the students actively engaged with the learning that's happening. The scores getting better, or the the acceptance of digital learning getting better. If you have any specific instances that you can talk about that other schools and colleges can understand from.
Yes, Ananth, actually, we started an initiative 3 years back called Vedic in Hyderabad. It's basically a teaching learning center. It's a campus exclusively built for our faculty, because across our group we have close to 1,800 faculty, and mainly on improving the pedagogy. One very good thing which happened was adoption of online teaching learning almost 2.5 years back. Now that has come in very handy for us. And almost all our faculty come here. They stay for 4 days. It's a residential facility. It's very close to the Chilkur Balaji temple. And we have a very eminent faculty who have come back from abroad, Purdue University, Indiana University, mainly cognitive scientists. We have psychologists. We have people obviously from different domains. And that has really helped us. So one good initiative, Ananth, which I'd like to maybe tell everyone here, is our dental college. You will be surprised that the dental college has adopted technology much faster than any of the engineering colleges. 3 years back, they realized that in a class of 100, because typically the Dental Council recommends a class size of 100 for BDS. It's very difficult actually, even in a brick and mortar classroom, to communicate to 100 students and to effectively sort of monitor their performance. So our director and principal, along with the Vedic team, they designed a very good program. Today, the end result is about 2 years back, this was rolled out. Each and every student has a tab, an Apple tab. All the faculty have tablets. Entire content is delivered through the Apple tablets. A lot of, modeling, a lot of scientific content is already available. In addition to that, faculty deliver a lot of content. All the patient data, clinical data, everything is actually being put on the tabs. So today they are quite comfortable, even though they're sitting at home. The classes are going on very seamlessly, and we have 25 dental hospitals running in the Godavari districts, run by the college. Even that data is actually put onto the tab. So that is one way I think technology has been adopted, and Apple has showcased this. Even in the UK, they're showing it to their colleges there, how actually you can use technology to actually connect with the students. But I also agree with Ananth and with Dr. Snehal that it should be a combination of both. It can't be just the Apple iPads itself. They need mentors, they need people, they need guides, they need that peer learning. All that is very, very important. One step lower, we have an FM radio in our Bhimavaram campus, and we're using the FM radio right now. As we said, also every day in the morning and evening, classes are being conducted for the MSET coaching as well as for the NEET coaching. And radio is something which is very, it's a low-cost device, so receivers are there in all the rural areas, and we serve the rural areas there. So these are basically some of the examples in technology. But the most important thing I would, two things I want to mention here, especially since I'm coming from higher education and with an engineering background. Sometimes engineering faculty, including me, we are very cut and dry. We come directly to the point. We talk about equations, we talk about mathematics, we talk about a lot of abstract stuff. I think the faculty should learn a lot of storytelling, and they have to make a story around any engineering concept. And we've actually seen some very good outcomes coming out of that. We see students, we don't have to force students to come to some of the faculty's classrooms. A same simple subject, instead of directly coming to the point as an engineer does, if we can evolve some kind of a story around it, create a situation, then conceptually a lot of these things actually make a big mark. And I think even the MHRD today in the new document, the National Education Policy on Higher Education, they are insisting on a lot of arts and humanities courses to be included along with the technical education. I think this is something which I want to tell. The second important thing, maybe a little bit I'm digressing, these are times of a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty. For whatever we are optimistic and we are actually being very positive, a lot of students and faculty are quite nervous what is going to happen. For example, what about the students who got job offers now? Will these companies recruit them? That is one area. Second, can I go back to college in fall? What about the future of the college? If the college is closed, they don't run for like 7-8 months. So what we have done in our campuses, we have, these are all residential campuses, we have full-time psychologists there. We have a psychology department. And what we have seen and what our principals tell us, in the last 1 month, maximum number of calls are going to our psychologists from our students. And I think that is something which I could like to share with all the panelists here and also with the people attending this webinar. In your respective colleges, institutions, I think it's very important that we need to counsel our students, the parents, faculty. And I highly recommend that all the institutions should have a full-time psychologist, maybe a psychology department, to actually tackle these issues. So I just thought, Ananth, I should share some of these practices.
Sure, absolutely helpful. I mean, there are learnings that others can use to see how they can implement such solution. We have a question next for Mr. Mittal. I think that online classes are the thing, and there are a lot of students without computers and phones and internet. That is one part of the question. So how does government look at it? But the second is, what in your view, from a government policy standpoint, need to be, let me say, implemented in order to, or a policy that should come out in order to better facilitate this new normal of e-learning, right, as part of programs that would be helpful just to get your perspective on those two.
Yeah, Ananth. So there are two parts to it. One is basically to tackle this crisis. I mean, the short term, what to be done. I don't think there is any further easy solution. The idea is basically to go online and utilize all the means which are possible to reach out to the students. So one is directly live classes, which are through some of the platforms I talked about during my initial address, and then students who are not able to make it, I mean, provide them some material offline, which they can access whenever they want it. But I think going forward, as my co-panelists have said, I think the future is of one is blended learning in our campuses, and two is purely online learning for those who do not choose to come to the campuses. I mean, I'll just kind of give my detailed thoughts on this. What I mean by blended learning is, in the sense, going forward, the role of information per se in our classrooms is going to decrease, because information is available. I mean, for information, a teacher need not write on the board or show slides to provide the information. Information is something which students can actually get on their own through many of these platforms. So I think classrooms have to become more of discussions and analytic kind of classrooms, where you actually discuss on issues and imbibe some of this learning, and rather than being a pure information providing place. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. There is an entity called Spoken Tutorials in IIT Mumbai. So there is this group which does a lot of e-learning and online learning. Professor Kanan, who's a good friend of mine, is handling that. So in one of our interactions, he was mentioning that they're conducting these programs, which our government college is also participating. But he was telling an experience that there was one college in Gujarat where they found some very brilliant results. I mean, something like 95+% pass rates and some excellent performance. So they really wanted to check how they're gaming the system, whether there is some hanky-panky which is happening there, or what really is the reason for good performance there. And when they actually went and checked, they found that there was a very motivated teacher who was showing their lecture through a video in the classroom, and then providing a sort of a discussion forum to really discuss the issue among the students. And then they found that the rate of imbibing that learning in the students was so high that they all performed brilliantly well on the evaluations. So I think that is the kind of model which probably we'll have to look at, where the best teacher who's available, they record their videos. They, as Mr. Vishnu has said, they do it in a form of a storytelling. People who have been students of physics would remember Feynman lecture series. I mean, one of the greatest physics teachers whose lectures have been famous for many decades. Make something which is very interesting, which students are able to really want to listen, and then use classroom forums for a lot of discussions. So that is one area which I think is going to become more and more important. And the second one is e-learning from the perspective of people who are not able to come to the classroom. For example, working professionals. I mean, Dr. Snehal mentioned about unlearning and relearning. So that is something which is going to be very important in the future. I mean, it's not just sufficient to be in the college for about 4 years or 5 years time for whatever program you're doing, but then learning is all about learning for life. So people who are working, for them, I think e-learning is probably one of the best solutions going forward. And also it is going to be very important for our faculty training, faculty development, because right now what is happening is that for training the faculty, you have to actually bring the faculty to a particular place, spend a lot of time of theirs, which should have actually gone into the classroom, to bring them to a common place for training. And a lot of expenditure is actually in government. I would say 90% plus expenditure of faculty training goes on to TiE, which is the traveling allowance, their daily allowance, their place of stay, their food, but not on the actual content. So I think for FDP, for faculty development programs, online is going to be the thing, we are also experimenting with a lot of things, where we have a forum which is called Global Educational Career Forum, where we are actually getting some of these programs done by faculty in some of the best universities in US, Europe, and Australia. The faculty from there actually runs program for faculty of our engineering colleges. So I think going forward, this is going to be a huge area. And then another thing which I would like to mention is sort of a personalized learning. I think the shape of our schools, especially K to 12, I see is going to change through the personalized learning. If you really look at some of the surveys which have been done by some of the NGOs in our country, you find students of 5th or 6th class are not able to do, I mean, I'm talking about government schools in some of the rural areas, they're not able to do basic mathematics or basic English or basic science. They don't have those levels in 5th or 6th grade, which a 2nd or 3rd grade student would have. So the question is that, do we really need these grades according to the age which they are, or do we need to really segregate students according to their learning levels? So that is something I think which we have to grapple in the future. And from government side, I can tell you very confidently that there's a lot of dynamism which I find in last couple of years. For example, both UGC and AICTE have been very proactive in bringing some of these latest technologies into our classrooms. UGC allows 20% of your credits to be obtained through MOOCs, and even AICTE does that. I mean, so student really doesn't have to do the courses which are offered in their college or their university, but they can actually go on to platforms like SWAM or other MOOC platform and then get 20% of their credits. So I think government has been pretty proactive in this regard, and going forward, we are going to see a lot of transformation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mittal. One thing I would say is, it's new to all of us, the whole e-learning, and so every school seems to think that it's a very complex problem to solve. It's actually not. As people who have done this for a while, we feel like it's not a very hard thing. We've had a scenario where a school was doing with WhatsApps, a lot of email interaction, download from the web, do the homework, and when this COVID thing happened, they said, hey, how can we now streamline and structure this, because we need to do that. And literally we could empower them in like 4 days, get their content on it, get their students on it. Students were using it on the mobile who had it, people were using it on the laptop that had it. And literally by the 7th day, we had 100% of students completely involved and engaged into that solution. So the school was completely live, classes going on normal. There's live classes at 10:30, prepared videos for you to watch at 11:30, finish this homework at 12. You have an assessment at the end, and it's extremely structured and doable. I think that each school and college should probably look at what fits them and be able to do something like that quickly. And it doesn't take more than a week to 2 weeks to completely embed e-learning into your blended model. That's the way I look at it. Snehal can probably talk a little bit more about that. But Mr. Mittal, will come back to you about this whole, let me say, how do we make it affordable to people who don't have these endpoints, right? Whether it's TV or mobile phone or internet or some of those things. I think we're getting a lot of questions on that. But after you, so Snehal, I was going to ask, actually, Mr. Mittal, if you can answer that, because I've seen almost like 10 questions on that topic of what is government going to do about this last mile e-learning enablement. E-learning is there for sure, but how do we make sure the entire society gets covered through that?
I think there is no other solution but ultimate solution. It's only going to be a question of time, but ultimate solution is only going to be provide a device per child. I think the investments of government in the future, apart from whatever investments are happening in the hard component, which is brick and mortar of building schools and furniture in the schools, or salaries of the teacher, I think increasingly governments will have to invest on providing an access to a device to every child who chooses to come to government school. I mean, at least to begin with. There's probably no other solution long-term way but this, because education is increasingly going to be more and more personalized. And I think, as I mentioned, getting information is something which a student actually can do on his own. I mean, he doesn't need to spend time in a classroom to obtain information, and classrooms should be more about analytics and discussions and imbibing the learning. Secondly, a lot of evaluation has to become kind of personalized. So with that, what I mean is that a student should be able to have the assessment tests which are personalized according to what they have imbibed from that learning. So the present assessment standards or present assessment techniques which we have are very rote learning and cramming oriented techniques, which really doesn't help. I mean, we've all seen it. And I think if all of us have to spend a lot of time in building these evaluation systems which actually work, and then we are able to assess students as to how much they have really imbibed and push them more and more into application oriented learning and into critical thinking, into problem solving.
Great, thank you. Another question, and I think this is directed to Vishnu. As we look at MOOCs and other solutions out there, how do we, I mean, does this mean it'll diminish the value that engineering colleges and institutions will bring?
No, I don't think so. We have to build, as Mr. Mittal said, we have to work together. It's going to be a combination of MOOCs and already AICT also has got some very good programs like Swayam and all that. But I think college education is not just about learning stuff online. It also has to do with the social skills of the student, the emotional connect, group working. So I think it will be a combination of both. And I think colleges have to actually change their total way they do things. And I think the key for all the managements is to motivate the faculty and the students. And if that can be done, and it's not easy. It's not going to be easy to conduct an online course. I'm sure a lot of faculty watching this program, it must be very tough for them, and must be very strenuous for them, right from sitting at home and then recording those lectures or doing it live. It's basically a science and an art also, and it'll only come by improvising. In fact, I was just watching the University of Oregon Teaching Learning Center this morning. They actually have even videos to show the faculty on lighting, audio, on how actually you actually conduct a class, and to that extent people are analyzing all these analytics, and I think that's the only way forward for all of us. So I don't think the role of the importance of a college will not come down, but we'll have to think differently. We have to think very fast, and also I think the costs will come down. My prediction is that in higher education, as it is India, we are not very expensive. But with this fees reimbursement going on in many states, money is going to be an issue. And if we are going to move more into online, and if AICT and UGC say, okay, they will change the norms as far as infrastructure is concerned, then I think the benefit of that should go to the students. So it all boils down to finances also. This is my opinion on the subject.
Understood. Thank you. Snehal,
just one point
sure.
Here I forgot to mention. Since this is the teaching online is a very new concept to many of us, there is something which we could suggest to the faculty who are taking these classes. This is something called a letter of a successor. Any president, especially in the US, when they remit office and the new one takes office, they have something called a letter of a successor. We could come out with this concept, especially now, this semester, right now, even in the schools and colleges, when the teaching is going on, a certain group of students can be nominated to give feedback to their juniors. Because the way a senior student tells a junior student, it goes very quickly into the class rather than a faculty telling. So, and then giving that feedback even to the faculty on what best to improve. And they can also be the ambassadors to the next batch of students to how to adopt to this teaching online method. I think I thought I should share this with you.
Snehal, do you see any issues for students, especially the younger ones, who have to spend a good amount of time on the mobile or a laptop or a TV to get this education going, right? I mean, the question was more, is there any, let me say, psychological slash, device time kind of issues that you foresee? Because this is here to stay, and please go ahead.
So, like I said earlier while I was speaking, I think we need to bear in mind that the role of the teacher has essentially changed. And like I'm just alluding to what Mittal sir said earlier on, the teacher is now not just a content creator; she's a collaborator, and classrooms will now become more spaces to connect the dots, if I may say so. The role of the teacher is to enable the student to connect the dots between what is learned and what is out there in the real world, and actually create space and ground to breed innovation and help them become critical thinkers and problem solvers. That said, for the low primary, like I was saying, for the low primary and the pre-primary, I think the lesson plan will have to completely like do a turnaround, and that's where the shared role of the parents and the teachers, they'll have shared roles with the parents, where parents are also if I may say, guiding the whole process of learning. Where screen time, there's like you said, Anand, there's a structure to everything, even in an unstructured. They're like, we are people who like frameworks, and we are comfortable within that. And the anxiety of a parent at any point is, the health of the child, that is primary, safety of the child, that is primary. And for the lower, there are norms, there are research, there's research that suggests that no more than a certain amount of up to 40 minutes to up to like a couple of hours for the lower primary and all of that, but that again in breaks. And that is why for our kids, our plan is to give lots of resources and links, and make it like a plan that enables the parent and the student together to pursue this learning goals. And it's I heard a speaker, it's not about learning a certain topic at that given time itself. Like I said, it will come to the students' pace of learning, ownership of learning process, and then accomplishing those outcomes to the level of understanding. So assessment will not just be off learning; it will be for and as they are learning. So summative assessments will not just be at the final. I think it's going to be more replaced with as they're going along. There's going to be a lot of formative assessment, different models of formative assessments as well. So that is something we are fostering. In terms of screen time for this, for smaller kids, I think there will be, if anything in moderation is and well balanced is healthy. In enthusiasm and excitement to make sure our kid gets everything that is out there, a parent can go overboard. So I think it's more incumbent on the parents to play the role of the parent and set the boundaries for their kids at home.
Got it. I think there's a lot of questions of, can we do this? Can we do that? I think Mr. Mittal mentioned personalized learning. Can that be done through e-learning solutions? Can online learning be measured? Can virtual, let me say, tests be done? Theory be done? I would probably simply answer all of that can be done by an e-learning solution, and a lot more. Let me also say that there's a question, and there are a lot of entrepreneurs in this group, so let's put it that way. Entrepreneurship training is a big part of, I think, right from colleges and schools now making it additional courses. Do you believe that entrepreneurship training, by getting actual entrepreneurs, talking to students and training them, that's something that can go online and be effective online? I could
yeah, Ananth,
probably ask Mr. Mittal. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think that is very much going to be the future. I mean, the actual practitioners also coming in and supporting the students. I mean, entrepreneurship is one area uh, which is going to be really exciting. I mean, TiE is a great example of mentorship. I think the reason why TiE programs are so successful, both TiE grad and TiE young entrepreneurs program, is because it's a mentorship based program where people who have actually had success in various areas actually handhold and mentor the groups who are participating. And I think that is something which simply cannot be replaced by simple classroom teaching. So I see this is going to be more and more happening in the future, where actual practitioners are able to help the students. Similarly, if you look at even students who are going to work in the industry, I mean, people who have actually handled things, handled those technologies, or handled those situations, they are going to supplement teaching, which is happening in the classrooms, to give a really practical perspective to the students, and that's going to be increasingly so in the future.
Interesting. I have a message from the managing director of NSDC, the National Skill Development Corporation. They're also going through quite a bit of, let me say, e-learning transition. I kind of said, I'd like to quote you on what you think is important. And he said, e-learning is critical to future of skills, and as we move from Industry 2.0 based education system to Industry 4.0 aligned education system, with academics becoming more closely linked to market needs, given that the market is changing too fast to afford a long lead time in industry for learning. Right? So learning job relevant stuff has to happen, and it has to happen both on the shop floor and both in the education system. So very critical point that he had mentioned.
I would like to just supplement that, Ananth. I mean, we are seeing more and more instances of now companies recruiting students well in advance. I mean, at least a couple of semesters in advance, and then running their training programs concurrently with the final year. So, I mean, I can tell you about a lot of examples of such engineering colleges in and around Hyderabad, which I have personally visited, where the employers who have actually selected those students run those programs concurrently, and there's no other way to run it but through e-learning. So students, when they actually pass out, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So students, when they actually pass out and then they're joining, I mean, they've actually also done the specific program for the specific job which they're going to handle concurrently with their final year or final semester learning. So we are seeing more and more instances of that, where students are ready day one onto the job.
Right, an interesting question that comes up with e-learning now becoming mainstream. Do you think online evaluation framework or something similar to SAT becomes a reality in India? I can talk a little bit from a technology enablement of that, and then I'll ask Mr. Mittal to see if government will think about something like that. But you can do online proctored tests. So basically, right from the video camera of the device that you're doing it on, plus the microphone, plus the computer screen, can actually monitor you one-on-one to ensure that it's you who's taking the test, and you're not taking any help from anybody. No other person has come in, etc. So all of this, let me say, cheat-proofing the test there is now technology. In fact, we have a solution also, but you can do all of that so that assessments and exams can actually happen at the comfort of your home, right? And so you would go in, log in, start your exam at 10:30, finish at 12:30, and you've been kind of, let me say, monitored through these 2 hours with all of these computer equipments around you to make sure that you've not cheated to write the exam. So there are those solutions, and we believe that it should be adopted. Companies have used that for interviewing, and companies have used that for conducting, let me say, tests for employees. But I'm curious to hear whether government will look at it because exams are stalled and they need to go on, and is there a need for someone who can be monitored to come into the college to write the exam when he can actually do it in a, let me say, a proctored environment, a system proctored environment?
So Ananth, that's a very interesting question, and what I would say is I would basically try to separate it to three parts. Online evaluation. So one is online evaluations are already a reality, even in government also. For example, uh, our MSET, which is engineering and medical common entrance test, medical now, a lot of it has moved to NEET, but we still have the pharmacy and the agricultural component still existing within the state framework itself. So our MSET exam, which is an entrance exam for engineering and pharmacy and agriculture, is actually completely online. Of course, it is not online anywhere. There are those specific centers like the GRE exam, where you have to actually go based on the time slot which you are given, and then the entire exam happens on a device. So this is already happening, and I see this is going to happen more and more. The second thing which we are already doing in Telangana, and I'm sure that many universities in other parts of the country are also doing, is sort of a kind of a on-screen evaluation, which we call it, where the student is taking the examination on a paper in an examination center, but the evaluation does not happen in a fixed way, in a place where all the teachers come and sit down and evaluate the physical answer sheet. So in our technical education and in our Osmania University, which is the largest university in the state, we do completely on-screen evaluation where all the answer scripts get scanned and they are sent to the evaluators completely online. In fact, last summer in technical education, we allowed our evaluators to actually evaluate those answer scripts from home, provided they have a biometric device. So they enter into the system by having a biometric impression. They exit with a biometric, and at random intervals, the system asks them to put their biometric to know that they are only evaluating. So it is already happening in a big way, and increasingly it is going to be more. Now, my vision for the future, Ananth, is that which is a long-term vision, is that we have to get out of this one-shot semester or annual exam. And I think our assessments have to become, as Dr. Snehal was also pointing out, has to become more and more concurrent. I mean, why do you wait for 6 months or 1 year to have the evaluation? You can actually do that evaluation online every week, or whenever you really want, and to see whether the students actually imbibe that topic or not. And I think I see that as a real future, where you come out of this one-shot exam at the end of the semester or end of the year. We try to do that in our polytechnics in some way, in the sense, instead of having a semester end exam which is weighted 80% and then the internals 20%, we have actually moved into two mid-sem exams and an end-sem exam, and the ratio of that is end-sem is 40%, two mid-sems are 20% each, and the internals are another 20. So just to basically kind of make it more and more concurrent, but I think even that is sort of a step function, but we have to probably move into a direction where you have comprehensive and continuous evaluation, the buzzword of CBSE for last few years. Do it concurrently, and I think technology would enable that, and I would say that would be the transformative step. Now, talking about the present situation, which all of us are worried about, I don't think in our public universities having online examination in this summer would be a big possibility for the reasons which I've discussed in my opening remarks. Students right now, all the students do not have devices, all the students do not have network connections, so they have to actually come to a centralized place. And if they're coming, then it doesn't matter whether it is a physical exam or an exam on the device. So short term, if you're talking about this semester end exams in the public examination systems, I don't think we're actually ready for it. but there are a lot of institutions which are at the top end of the spectrum. For example, some of the IITs or IIMs or NITs or some of the major private universities which cater to the upper middle class and the higher income stratas of the society. There it is possible, but I don't see it happening in the public examination systems in this semester end or in this year end exam.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Mittal. I think there's a lot of questions on, how do we go about doing e-learning? How do we get that started? I think we'll have to hold that for another session. We'd be happy to try and, in fact, there's another question that says, any tools available to start e-learning, etc., etc. So I think we'll certainly try and request TiE to do another session on how does your school or college get started. That may be a good one. But to try and end these, let me put it as one rapid fire kind of question with a one-word answer. Are you thinking this COVID issue is lockdown type issue? Is it 1 month issue? Is it a 6 month issue? One number, please, from each of the panelists.
According to me, I think it is going to be there for at least an year, because I don't see it getting resolved so quickly. So we have to get used to live with it for the near foreseeable future.
I think till the vaccine comes, we have to live with it till the vaccine comes.
Snehal.
Yeah, till the vaccine comes, I'm giving it, I think, about, given the fact that everyone is racing to get the vaccine, I'm hoping within the 8 months or a year, we get that break.
Got it. My impression is it's going to be a lot longer, obviously, for the vaccine, but even with social distancing and all of that, it's a couple of years problem. But now, next one. So is this e-learning adoption for a month or 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, whatever we think is the COVID period, or is it for the longer term?
According to me, it is going to be for a long time. But the onlining lessons from the teacher probably be for a very short time. I think for next couple of months. I think that is not going to be sustainable, where a specific class is taken by a teacher sitting from a remote location. But e-learning
So
per se,
right. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but if you're asking e-learning, I think it is going to be permanent. I mean, this is one disruption which is going to be there with us.
So if you're looking at digital learning along with live learning, you look at live learning as a temporary, but digital learning with e-learning is a long term. Snehal, any view, Vishnu?
I think it's going to be permanent. And I think, Ananth, what's going to happen is there'll be a component of, I think a lot of companies will now start developing artificial intelligence linked with e-learning. Because one thing which I think, I think some people are already working in the US. For example, if a student takes up a particular subject online, the AI tools will actually monitor the student's weakness and then direct the student into that particular concept and bring back the student to the main subject. Already people in Carnegie Mellon are working on such initiatives. I think going forward, we'll see many more of that. And e-learning is here to stay. It's going to be permanent.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a permanent feature, but it's going to be a facet of K-12 learning. It's not going to be, well, let's just say it's one aspect of integral to school education. Yes.
Yeah, so my view is that there's a lot of obviously points here, and I believe that the technology is here today. In fact, I think Vishnu mentioned someone in the US have it now. It is there here today in Hyderabad, AI-based proctoring, AI-based learning, personalized learning paths, and I think those haven't been discovered because the need was not heavy, but today that is there. And we do some of that, but there is quite a few others that do some of that, and those technologies and solutions are ready for deployment and prime time. So let me summarize here. I think that thank you first of all the panelists for spending valuable time. We've got only a minute or two left, but very good learnings here. It looks like e-learning has to be adopted. So if you're a school, college, the message is very clear from all the panelists. E-learning has to start now, and it is there for the future. I think Vishnu also brought up some interesting things about trying to rationalize fees so that the student benefits from it when you're looking at it. How government is looking at policy, how government is looking at enabling the last mile was very interesting, Mr. Mittal. And I think everybody is grappling with how to make it more engaging for the students and make it more productive for the teachers in order to make that e-learning a reality. So clearly, I think this is clearly the future, and we'll have to find problems for our individual schools and colleges. But I think a lot of the problems are shared ones, and I wish the next webinar on this will say that a lot of these have been put in place because, like I said, clearly there is solutions out there, and I wouldn't talk about it more than that, but there is clear solutions. It's about deploying that. With that, thank you very much. I want to thank all the three panelists for taking time and addressing this large audience. There is still, I think between the three platforms, over 1,000 people. Funny can tell us that. So you've kept them engaged for an hour and a half. All of you are obviously good teacher material as well when you talk about engaging from a teacher's perspective. So over to you, Funny. Thank you for this opportunity to moderate this panel.
Thank you, Ananth.
Thank you, Ananth, and thanks to all the panelists. It's a real engaging conversation. It's an ocean of information. I think, like Ananth mentioned, there has to be a series of webinars and discussions around e-learning. Much as I don't want to really wait for a year, and I feel and I wish that I wake up tomorrow morning and there is no COVID and we're all back in the old world. But what I still intend and want to say is all these transformation of education that you spoke about today, and also the e-learning and the blended learning concepts that you alluded to. Wish all of those stay, minus the COVID for tomorrow. With that positive and reassuring note from all of you, thank you so much for the session. These are the links for people who are still on the call today. So we have 800, 600, 750 attendees still on the call. So this has been the maximum attendance for few of the past webinars who stayed all through the 90 minutes. Questions kept pouring. We also got about 1800 plus attendees who have come and gone from this webinar. So that's a lot of attendance through this webinar itself. And we had close to about 400 odd people joining on YouTube, plus another 100 or 50 on the Facebook page. I think this is the most important topic. We all recognize that education in India and the future of students is the most important topic for all of us. Let's all continue to work towards making it much better for them, and then a better world for all our children. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. And people logging from other cities, good morning, good afternoon, whichever part of the world that you're logging in. Bye-bye from TiE Hyderabad.
Thank you.
Stay safe, stay blessed. Bye-bye. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All of you. A very nice panel. Thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Thanks to all.